Two ancient ingredients, one single biological switch. One was placed inside the tombs of the pharaohs as a symbol of vitality. The other was consumed by Aztec emperors before entering the royal chamber. But none of that matters as much as this. If you're over 50 and you've recently noticed changes in your body, weaker erections, lower energy, slightly rising blood pressure, it may not simply be aging. It could be the first warning sign of a weakening vascular system. And in many cases, erectile dysfunction appears 3 to 5 years before a heart attack. So the real question is there a way to reactivate your body's natural vasodilation mechanism before things become serious? In the next few minutes, I'll explain exactly what's happening inside your arteries and why this specific combination may influence the most important molecule for male, vitality. And this is the part no one really tells men. When the endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels, begins to weaken due to aging, chronic inflammation, high blood sugar, or prolonged stress, your body produces less nitric oxide. And when nitric oxide drops, your blood vessels lose their flexibility. Blood flow becomes weaker, pressure inside the vessel walls increases, and the smallest blood vessels are affected first. That's why erectile dysfunction often appears early not as a masculinity issue but as a biological signal, a signal that your circulatory system needs attention. If you're over 50 and you've never heard this before, subscribe now, because the most important part, how to reactivate this mechanism, is coming next. Here's the good news: endothelial function doesn't disappear permanently. It can be supported and partially restored with the right interventions through nutrition, movement, and lifestyle changes. And that's exactly why we're talking about the combination of flavanol-rich cacao and pomegranate juice. Inside every artery in your body, there is an ultra-thin layer of cells called the endothelium. It's so thin that you could never see it with the naked eye, yet its role directly determines your cardiovascular health and male vitality. Think of the endothelium like wallpaper lining the inside of your blood vessels. When that wallpaper is smooth, flat, and healthy, blood flows through easily, flexibly, and steadily. But when it becomes inflamed, damaged, or stiff over time, blood flow begins to face resistance. The most important function of the endothelium is producing nitric oxide, a signaling molecule that controls how your blood vessels expand. When nitric oxide is produced in sufficient amounts, it sends a signal to the vessel walls to relax. The result: blood vessels dilate naturally. Blood flow increases. Blood pressure becomes more stable. Circulation to the reproductive organs improves, supporting erectile function. And the heart doesn't have to overwork to pump blood throughout the body. However, with aging, chronic stress, high blood sugar, and ongoing inflammation, the endothelium gradually weakens. When that happens, nitric oxide levels drop. Blood vessels lose flexibility. Circulation slows. Pressure builds. And the smallest blood vessels, such as those in the penis, are often the first to show signs. That's why circulatory issues frequently appear before major cardiovascular events. And this is exactly where flavanol-rich cacao and pomegranate start to become interesting, because they act directly on this nitric oxide switch. The issue isn't chocolate. It's the level of flavanols preserved in pure cacao. When cacao is heavily processed, alkalized, loaded with sugar, or mixed with industrial emulsifiers, most of its biological activity is significantly reduced. What we care about isn't sweetness, it's the ability to naturally stimulate nitric oxide production inside the vessel walls. Cacao flavanols work by supporting the endothelial enzymes responsible for producing nitric oxide. When this signal increases, blood vessels relax more efficiently, circulation improves, and pressure within the system decreases in a physiological, not forced way. That's why several studies have observed measurable improvements in endothelial function after just a few weeks. However, cacao is not a silver bullet. It doesn't erase plaque overnight. It doesn't replace a healthy lifestyle. What it does is support a mechanism your body already has provided. That mechanism hasn't been severely damaged. And this is the key point. When you provide the right nutrients to the endothelium, you support the vascular system's ability to self-regulate. That's not temporary stimulation. It's optimization of a foundational biological process. And when that foundation improves, the positive effects can extend throughout the entire circulatory system. In ancient Egypt, the pomegranate was more than just food. It was a symbol of rebirth, masculinity, and vitality. Its image appeared in tombs as a reminder of enduring life force. Today, science looks at pomegranate from a different perspective: biochemistry. Pomegranate is rich in polyphenols, particularly punicolagens and anthocyanins, compounds known for their powerful ability to neutralize free radicals. Oxidative stress is one of the primary factors that damages the endothelium and reduces nitric oxide availability. When oxidative stress decreases, the internal environment of the blood vessels becomes more supportive of recovery and proper function. One study observed that drinking pomegranate juice daily for 2 weeks increased salivary testosterone levels by approximately 24%. At the same time, markers of inflammation and oxidative stress significantly declined. When combined with flavanol-rich cacao, the effect appears to be stronger. Some data suggest that free testosterone may increase by up to 48%, along with roughly a 25% improvement in physical strength markers. Will this effect last forever? Not necessarily. The body always adapts over time. But what's truly interesting is the synergy cacao helps activate nitric oxide production. Pomegranate helps protect and restore the endothelial environment. One increases the vasodilation signal, the other reduces the underlying damage. This combination isn't magic, but it simultaneously influences both blood flow and hormonal balance. And when those two systems improve together, the changes are often more noticeable than when you target only a single factor. This distinction is critical. When we talk about cardiovascular health, we're talking about a complex system, one that cannot be fixed with a single drink. Arterial plaque develops over many years due to chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, smoking, physical inactivity, and poor dietary patterns. Improving endothelial function and increasing nitric oxide may help blood vessels become more flexible, but that does not mean existing structural damage is simply erased. If used properly, King's Tonic should be viewed as part of a broader strategy. Better nutrition, consistent physical activity, adequate sleep, blood sugar control, blood pressure management. It supports the body's natural self-regulation mechanisms. It helps create a more favorable endothelial environment. It may improve blood flow at a physiological level, but it does not replace medical diagnosis. It does not replace clinical monitoring, and it does not replace medication when medication is necessary. Understanding its limits allows you to use this tool wisely rather than placing unrealistic expectations on it. And only when you position it correctly within a comprehensive health strategy can you truly benefit from it in a safe and sustainable way. The effectiveness of this formula doesn't depend only on the ingredients, it depends heavily on how you prepare it. First, choose 1 teaspoon of organic flavanol-rich cacao. It must be non-alkalized, unsweetened, and free from industrial emulsifiers. Alkalization Dutch processing can significantly reduce flavanol content, which means reducing the very compounds responsible for stimulating nitric oxide. Next, mix the cacao with warm water, not boiling water. Excessive heat can damage heat-sensitive bioactive compounds. The goal is to preserve as much natural activity as possible. Then add about 1/4 cup of pure cold-pressed pomegranate juice with no added sugar. Bottled juices high in sugar or heavily diluted products will not provide the same antioxidant benefits. Add 1 teaspoon of raw, unpasteurized honey for flavor and additional micronutrients. If you have diabetes or need strict blood sugar control, you may skip this ingredient. Optionally, you can add a pinch of sea salt or a small amount of chili powder to enhance flavor and mildly stimulate circulation. Drink it 3-4 times per week, ideally on an empty stomach for optimal absorption. If you're sensitive to caffeine, avoid consuming it close to your coffee intake. Most importantly, consistency makes a bigger difference than increasing the dose. What makes this combination interesting isn't just the individual ingredients, it's how they simultaneously influence multiple physiological systems. One cardiovascular system, nitric oxide, helps blood vessels relax, improves elasticity, and supports blood pressure regulation at a physiological level. When circulation flows more smoothly, the heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood throughout the body. 2. Sexual circulation. The mechanism is similar. An erection depends directly on vasodilation and sufficient blood flow to erectile tissue. When endothelial function is supported, this response may become more stable and reliable. 3. Hormonal balance. Pomegranate helps reduce oxidative stress, a factor that can negatively impact testosterone production. When the internal environment becomes less inflamed and less oxidized, the endocrine system can function more efficiently. 4. Mood and cognitive function. Brain performance depends heavily on circulation. oxygen, and nutrient-rich blood helps maintain mental clarity, energy levels, and focus. 5. Inflammation and metabolic health. Long-term health is built on proper inflammation control and metabolic balance. Polyphenols in cacao and pomegranate may help reduce low-grade inflammatory responses, a key contributor to vascular aging and metabolic dysfunction. It's this synergy, increasing vasodilation signaling while simultaneously protecting the endothelial environment, that creates a more comprehensive effect rather than targeting a single, isolated outcome. And perhaps the most important thing you need to understand is this: the body always sends signals before a crisis happens. It rarely collapses suddenly without warning. Persistent fatigue, weaker erections, blood pressure slowly creeping up, reduced focus, and mental sharpness. These are not signs of inevitable decline. They are indicators that your vascular system needs more serious attention. After 50, the smart strategy isn't chasing instant stimulation. Stimulation can create a fast reaction, but restoration creates sustainability. When you focus on improving endothelial function, reducing chronic inflammation, supporting nitric oxide production, and maintaining arterial elasticity, you're addressing the physiological foundation of male vitality. King's Tonic is simply one example of that mindset. Not because it's magical, but because it brings us back to a core principle. Healthy circulation is the root of energy, hormones, and performance. But remember, nutrition is only one piece of the picture. Regular movement, quality sleep, stress reduction, blood sugar and blood pressure control. All of these protect the system that male strength depends on. If you view erectile dysfunction as a signal instead of a failure, you'll act sooner. And early action is always far easier than late repair. Vitality is not something you automatically lose with age. It's something you maintain when you understand how the body works. Take care of your vascular system starting today. Because when blood flows strongly and efficiently, your heart, your brain, and your masculine vitality are protected by the same mechanism. If this content helped you see things more clearly, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is created specifically for men over 50 who want to take control of their health rather than relying entirely on medication or chance. And if you found this video valuable, comment flow below. I'll know you're ready to protect your circulation starting today. I'll see you in the next video.